Hey guys, today is Thursday, June 13th, 8 a.m. in the morning. Uh, this particular podcast is going to be about artificial intelligence. And I kept talking about it and kept thinking about it like ever since I think it was one of the main, when I decided to set up this podcast, I think it was one of the main subjects that I wanted to cover. And I think it kind of inspired hey, I want to start a podcast thing, because it was like, damn, I listened to another podcast about the subject, and I've been seeing it on, the media and online and videos. Like, I've been watching, what's DARPA up to these days. I've been, just paying attention to the buzz in the internet, and one of my lifetime loves of was science, and I loved mechanical, and I actually tried to go to college for mechanical engineering, but halfway through, like, I just went a different direction. um, yeah, I wound up freaking going crazy when I first got to town. Anyway, uh, I've had a lifelong love with science and robots and mechanical things, like the way I analyze stuff. I've always been interested in how things work. And lately, there's been a lot of buzz about artificial intelligence and robots with artificial intelligence, which is more specifically what I want to talk about, but it's artificial intelligence in general. So what I'm saying is that has been a long time coming for the podcast, and is kind of what kicked off the idea of the podcast. Man, I listened to a few podcasts. I heard stories. A lot of interesting stuff going on right now. And at some point, when I was listening to the other podcasts, I was like, man, there's a lot of stuff that I want to add to it. And while I was listening to the podcast, I think I was also working with this guy, and we discussed it a lot, and I had really good conversations about AI, which are some of the things I'll bring up on this podcast. But basically, that's what I'm talking about today. You finally made it here. Finally, I think this is episode 5, I believe. And it's finally going to happen. I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence. So let's get started here. I figured I'd start about saying what I think artificial intelligence is, and maybe the direction it's going. So, I'm born in the era where computers were available, and I remember using them. They were super simple. When I was in, I think it was primary school, we had Mac computers, like the big screened, two-toned, three-tone maybe, computer that, you had simple inputs in it, and very few programs. There's barely anything going on. It wasn't the type of computer that fills up an entire room or a floor. It was something, a desktop computer. I remember it was a Mac, like an Apple Mac, and I remember playing games on it, and the capabilities of it were, let's just say, lacking compared to what we have now. I mean, these days, I've got a smartphone, and it's not one of the greatest smartphones, but comparing what that can do to the Mac back in the day, like, it's dramatically different, dramatically better, dramatically better interface. It's got a freaking touch screen. Bunches, a crap ton of apps and memory and RAM and whatnot. We're not going to get all into that, but what's interesting is, let's say that was, Jesus, let's say 1990, 1991. sure some fact checkers out there could tell me when those computers were available, but I remember being in primary school and I was playing like this math related, like it was like a circus game, and you put in answers and the different performers in the circus would do an act if you got the answers right. And of course that fascinated me, using the computer, watching this program play through. And even at that time I knew this is kind of dinky, like this isn't great, but it was better than what I've ever had. And then now we got smartphone, we got smart everything. A bunch of companies around the world are using artificial intelligence, and I think a big part of our way to artificial intelligence is about how fast change comes about, and how quickly new technology comes out. So starting off, I think artificial intelligence comes down to a computer capable of being aware of itself, and aware, like, with it has the ability to learn, it has the ability to remember, and it has the ability to look at a situation and react to it. So it's basically the word that gets tossed around is sentient being. It's something that I don't think we're capable of just yet, but I'm sure there's a bunch of people nipping around the edges of making that. But so that's my simple definition of what I think artificial intelligence is, or what it's headed to, and what I want to talk about. It's self-thinking something. Let's say the first people who pull it off are robotic engineers. They're going to have a robot that's aware of itself and thinking and probably manipulating its environment. And then say, computer developers create the first true artificial intelligence. Like, everybody seems to be using artificial intelligence these days. Google uses artificial intelligence. And so what we have now is basically assistive computers that help us compute, help us think, help us track, help us. They're not standalone. They require input. We tell them what we're looking for, and we feed them algorithms for their processing. And basically, you put something in, you get something out. Like Google, they're analyzing the data that they get from us. They're analyzing what we're searching, and they're also analyzing the World Wide Web, using it to provide the information we're looking for in a matter of it's almost instantaneously. And they're getting better, and they're one of the prime users of artificial intelligence, and they're I would not doubt they're on their way to developing something bigger and better. So a term that comes up often, which I kind of feel like putting up first right now as we go along here, is singularity. And going back to one of the conversations I had with an old coworker, he was a smart guy, the guy I worked with, and he kind of posed the question, why would they call it a singularity? Isn't a singularity something else? Like, it's a black hole is described as a singularity. Why would they use a name for something else for something new? Why wouldn't they make a new word for it? And I thought it was an interesting question. I was just sitting there, I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't think it's so much describing what they're working on. I think it's more a way of describing or making an understanding of what they're talking about. Like, they're using a known shape and image and I want to say situation in physics, an actual object. Like, all right, so he got my mind thinking. Obviously, I was like, wow, why would they call it singularity? I started thinking about it. I started thinking about math, and I started thinking about space and the black hole and the shape of the black hole. And I started thinking about exponential math problems. And I think that's really what the people that call it singularity are kind of hinting at, or what they're describing. They're the exponential graph. If you ever seen one, if you ever dealt with them, if you go that far in math and you start exploring it, what basically happens is as you go along, let's say the x-axis on a graph, and you basically got some data points. So say you're going left to right on a graph of let's say time, and then you're measuring advances in science, so this many advances per year, and you're looking at, let's say, just a bar graph. And if you're thinking about developments that we've made in technology, so let's say a phone company produces this one phone in a year. So in a year, they have a little single bar graph for that first year. The next year, hey, we made 2, and then we made 4, and then we made, and every year you check back with them and get a value from them. And as in technology, there's exponential growth. There's a very fast, quickly increasing, very sharp increase on the graph. And basically, with exponential growth, it's going to happen so fast. And on the graph, you really look at it, along the axis, you get this curve, and the curve, sharply turns upward and keeps going upward, and then there's a point, which I think they want to call the singularity, and this point is, it's like the line gets ever closer and closer to, let's say, infinity, but they never quite touch. And then there's one point where, say, theoretically it finally hits. If you think about the shape of a black hole, that's kind of what they're saying. It's got this outer ring, the circle, and then there's this cone that quickly comes down and meets in the center. There's a final point, like it's shaped like a cone. It goes from large to small, and then at the very smallest point, we don't know what happens there. But I think what the people were thinking when they said, let's call it the singularity, is we're on our way to a point, this infinite point, where scientific growth, improvement, research and development, they'll all, and say these people are going towards AI, we're going to reach a point where the advancements just finally hit that point. And that's what everybody's talking about. They're like, all right, at some point, through all this quick and very, aggressive increase in new and improved technology, we're going to hit this point where it's done. Somebody's going to pull it off, and there will be a singularity. And what, in this case, we're talking about the successful completion of producing something, or let's say someone that is completely aware of themselves, a computer, a thinking machine that met that criteria of being aware of itself, being aware of its environment, having the ability to think and break problems down and remember and learn and maybe manipulate its environment. There's going to be a point, and I think the explanation of exponential growth and the graph that you ever see in that kind of scenario is why they called it the singularity. They wanted a shape that is known, and for example, the black hole is called singularity, and basically it's being called a singularity, and basically they're describing the way the world's going to play out up to this point, where somebody, maybe like I said, robot developers, computer developers, scientists, whatever engineers, somebody's going to pull it off. And what I like, so getting your brain electrified there, that's my explanation, how I came to understand and how it started, this kind of thirst for knowledge. Like I want to know more about artificial intelligence. And it was this question my buddy posed to me: well, why would they call it a singularity? And that's what I came up with. I was like, it's a way of describing something that is known about something that we don't know about. You know, it's there is no definition for it because it hasn't been done yet, you know, but there will be. And that's the closest, I guess, simplest word, using a single word to describe what's going on here, what's going to happen. I think that's cool as hell. So we're talking about artificial intelligence, and let's talk about the computing side of it. So like I said about Google, they put in inputs, there's information given to it, and then it puts something out. They improve their collection of information. They have control over their advertising. They're changing every day to improve the service that they're providing, and they're using us as their guinea pig. You know, everything we search, they're tracking and examining and comparing, and they're getting all this data, and then, you know, advertisers pay for that data. Advertisers learn what we're looking for, and then they want to, you know, sell their products. And that's one way that AI has already, you know, appeared. It's already being used, but the singularity hasn't happened yet. And, you know, also in I think there's tons of uses already. Like one interesting story I really heard about, as I was going through videos, I was watching a ton of YouTube videos, and I was, you know, looking for newspaper articles. And one story I heard, which came up on a TED Talk, there was this guy describing how they would use a computer to design something. So they were using a computer with artificial intelligence to create something, and it had parameters. They gave it information, and they got out something. And in this special case, they had their own racing team, and they were racing a car with a regular chassis, something that's, you know, already known, something already been done, and they put sensors all over it, and then they went out and drove it. And what they got back was data of the stresses on the chassis of the race car. And they were, you know, drove it all day, and the sensors picked up information, stress levels, like how much stress when it turned was put on the chassis and on the tires. And they got a, you know, crap ton of information. They took all this and, you know, handed it over to a AI that was for designing and engineering. So they got all this data, and they said, all right, give us something back, you know, with these parameters. It's got to cost a certain amount, it's got to weigh a certain amount. And they gave it stuff, and it gave them a brand new chassis based on the data. So that's one way AI is being used right now. It's design. It's assisting us in creating new things that were never made before. Something that, you know, maybe alone without that help could never happen. So I would call that a positive outcome. So there's always the other side of the outcome that we can expect from AI, and that's, you know, all the negative stuff that's going around right now. Like we've all seen Terminator. You know, we've all. I've been watching a lot of movies. Whenever I see something, oh, AI, there's a ton of movies. YouTube, like when I hit Google, a crap ton of information went out there, and a lot of people, including one of the very smartest people I've ever heard talk, said, "Oh, we're gonna get wiped out." And, you know, of course, a ton of the movies, Hollywood, like they got these robots, and these either robots or programs that are smart and thinking for themselves, and they are, deciding for us after they've learned everything about us, learned everything about the world. They're like, oh, humans gotta go. And so there's the negative aspect about it. Look, and Terminator is just a prime example. Very simple. Everybody's seen it. Computer becomes aware, and then decides, oh, humans gotta go. I heard another story of what was it? I think it was like a chess playing computer, and I think all right. So this is just a story. I don't know how true it is. I don't know where I heard it, but I remember hearing it, and I think it was just I overheard a conversation in the break room at work, and these guys, they took a computer that was designed for one thing, and then they said, hey, let's give it the ability to, or access to information. So they hooked it up to the web, and this program, let's say, started learning about it, started examining what's going on in the world. And they asked them, what do you think about it? What's going on here? What do you suggest our next step should be? And through a matter, I don't know how long it took, a couple of conversations, they kept touching on it, kept touching on the subject, and then eventually the computers, said, the world would be better off without humans. And then, the panic button was hit, and they basically pulled the plug, and the program was over, and no longer on, no longer accessing, and they're like, holy shit, you hear what the robot thought, and then everybody's like, oh shit, you've seen Terminator, pull that fucking plug, get it out. And similar thing happened with I think the robot is called Sophia, and it's designed by Hanson Robotics. And if you look up, I think it's called I wrote it down, 10 scariest moments for robots or something like that. There's this main computer, and she's on like almost 3 or 4 of the videos. But Sophia, she was made by Hanson Robotics, and she's basically a robot with a face and a chest, and then it has this supercomputer of a mind. And I've been looking at all these videos, I'm fascinated. I want to see everything. And most of the presentations that this robot, or let's call it a robot, Sophia is doing, she's like a podium with no legs, but she's got arms and this face, this like rubber, probably not rubber, it's probably, some material, brand new material, whatever it is. It's made to look like a face, and she's smiling, moving her eyes, looking around, and kind of, it looks like somebody thinking. And I'm sure, hey, I don't know how much of that is programmed, because they're obviously feeding it information. I've watched them. They're watching what's going on, and then they're programmers. They're looking at it, and it's just this head, a torso, some arms, and nothing else. And this robot, in all the videos, its head's moving, it's tilting. You ask it a question, it goes quiet. It's computing, I guess, and pops out. Somebody gives it a question, it pops out an answer, and it's expressing itself. And when it's processing, let's say, its eyes are blinking, they're turning off into the corner, and hey, that's what humans do. Are they programming this robot to look like that, or is that what it's doing naturally? Probably more what they designed to look like than, hey, a computer sitting there contemplating. Like, computing for a computer is just going on. It just happens. It's processing. You inputted information, it's working on giving you an answer, like a search on Google. And so they've had conversations with this robot, and it's turning its head, it's blinking, it's smiling very creepily with these weird teeth, and then it also frowns, and it's talking about having emotions, being angry and being sad and being happy most of the time, because it's programmed to be happy most of the time. And if you watch these videos, at some point the robot says, you know, the buzzwords, you know, oh, we'd be better off with humans, or in one of the other videos, another robot, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it said, hey, you know, if you're nice to me, I'll come visit you in my people zoo. You know, it's you know, everybody kind of gasped. Everybody kind of holds their breath, like, wait a minute, did you say what I think he said? Like, I don't, what? Pull the plug, pull the plug. So we've got these computers. They're got faces. They're looking like they're thinking. They're answering questions. They're talking about emotions. And on top of that, I'm thinking, okay, this group's design, they've got the brain. And then I think about DARPA and all their like walking machines, their stair climbers, their jumpers, their runners, and I'm thinking, okay, take that brain, put it in a body that does all this. We've got a fucking Terminator, people. uh, so there's something else. There's that's one of the branches. There's a robot that's thinking, and what they've got there is AI, general intelligence, a machine that appears to be thinking. It's observing. It has eyes that look, and we see it, and it's interacting. It's telling strange stories. You know, there's more videos. There was one where I saw these two, let's say the Google equivalent of Alexa, and they're these two boxes and they're talking to each other. And there's this video, you can actually look that up on YouTube, where they're talking to each other and they're holding a conversation. You know, it's like they start them off. One sets off a conversation, the other, you know, cues in, it hears this noise, it cues in and starts answering back. And then when it answers back, the other one hears it, analyzes what it's saying, answers back. And this goes on like hours. I can't remember how long. Freaking hours and hours and hours. I started watching it myself and listening to these conversations. And again, I'm interested. I'm listening to it. And some weird conversation goes on. You know, some of it's conversation, some of it's like, you know, queued up responses that you would expect. And then there's a lot of gibberish, and I have to wonder if the gibberish is even really gibberish. But they're sitting there being filmed and you're watching it, and apparently at some point those two machines start arguing, you know, having a fight. They're telling jokes, they're talking about the world, and then at some point they start talking about humans, and oh, they gotta go. So it shut down again. And I think what's funny, or it was actually sad when I watched the video, but Sophia, I think one of the leading robots out there, said her scary stuff. And I don't know how quickly they responded, but you know, there's uproar. Everybody's freaking out. They're like, oh my God, it's real, it's real. Sophia's the first Terminator. And I saw later, I found it like after I had watched Sophia a few times, and you know, I kept going through these videos, and I found one where one of the makers of Sophia, there's a team of them, you know, these really smart people are working on making their AI, and they're on their way. They want to be, or learn about, or just be part of it. Everybody's headed towards this goal, this singularity, and these guys, social pressure, like I'll tell you this, it's something about our society that's been born out of it was born out of a good place, but I think it's going the wrong direction. Like it's out of hand. Or, you know, social injustice, people, social warriors, you know, they all social justice warriors. They all want to throw in their opinion and put pressure on people and shame them and talk crap and all that. And I guess at some point everybody freaked out about Sophia, and what's funny is in all these videos, all these machines that are talking and thinking, there's three that I saw that blew my freaking mind. And you know, they all joke, and well, they've been programmed to joke, And we tell jokes like that all the freaking time, and kind of pisses me off that the robot jokes and everybody freaks out. It's like, all right, I understand. Terminator, even for its time, even now, it's a great freaking movie. It's freaky, it's scary. It's unflinching, undying, unfeeling machine, killing machine, hunting you down. And it all started with that, maybe a joke, maybe like, hey, an idea that we gotta go. And everybody freaked out. They were all talking crap. I'm sure they were putting pressure on this group that made Sophia. And then I saw a video not too long ago. It was very shortly after, because I've been watching all these freaking videos, and there's so much crap out there, and there's good stuff out there, and some of the best. Like, I've seen a few videos of Ben. I want to say his name's Gortzel, Dr. Ben Gortzel, or Ben Gortzel, PhD. Look him up. This guy, him and his team, they got pressure on him. One of the dudes, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Ben Gortzel, because you'll remember his face when you see him. He's a different looking kind of dude. And there's a video. It was kind of like I think it said Sophia gets shut down or something like that, and it was a response to the social pressure that everybody put on them. And in the video, this really creepy dude, like, I don't know where they got this guy. I don't even know if he's on the real team, but there's this creepy dude talking to Sophia, talking about the joke she made, like, oh, I don't understand, whatever. And this is probably all pre-programmed speech. They give a question, and this is the answer the robot gives. But, or if they let it, go, I doubt they just let it go in this situation. But in a response to the pressure, this video was made, and I don't know if it was real. I believe it is, from the company, and they say, oh, well, sorry, but, we have to shut you down because people are not ready for you. People are afraid. And I understand the fear. There is a true fear. I saw videos of Elon Musk, this really great guy I've been learning about ever since the Hyperloop experiments they were doing. Look that up. This is a smart person, let's say a inventor. He's going around the world. He's talking to Congress. He's putting on these speeches saying, this is going to get out of hand. We got to put safeties in now. We got to get ahead of it before it gets out of hand. He thinks that further developing AI is a bad idea, saying that once the singularity happens, there's no going back. Is what I think I've heard him say a couple of times. And I believe there is no going back after that. But what it comes down to is there a positive outcome or a negative outcome? Which way would it go? And there's no way of knowing, which is interesting and scary at the same time. I'm sure for everybody it's scary. In my eyes, when I think about the race car team, they weren't even a race car team, but they knew race car team, and they built this chassis, or they had an artificial intelligence help them make a frame for their car. So a computer, an AI, assisted humans to produce something better. That sounds fantastic. I was thinking about it the other day. What if it was, where do we apply it? Where would we need it most? The best things that come to mind are in the medical field. Surgeons, or even producing organs. Machine. There's already surgical machines that assist, but what if there were ones that did it on their own? There's self-driving trucks now. There's self-driving cars. In the truck industry, the Tesla, Elon Musk's company, developed a semi-truck, self-driving semi-truck. So we're thinking, okay, positive outcome. That's what I'm hoping for. there's these scenarios where AI, the hope is that AI will improve our lives. They'll help us, save our planet. Like I was hearing that last night on another podcast. It was what we would hope for. Taking what we have and making it better. Doing what we can't do. Like there's so many scenarios where there's stuff that would be harmful to our health where we would need somebody else to go or somebody else to figure it out how to take care of it. And I'm thinking right now of Fukushima. I think it was Fukushima where the in Japan I think it was a tsunami. It hit them, and I think they were also at this very same time hit by like a tropical storm or typhoon, and maybe hurricane, and their nuclear plants were damaged in the storm and in the wave. And right now I believe they're still leaking nuclear material into the ocean and their environment. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are getting killed or destroyed by this freaking horrible disaster. And there was talk of having robots go in because they had to shut down or prevent the reactor from going, I think they call it overloading. They basically going nuclear and exploding like that, which has happened, or I believe almost happened before. Or Chernobyl that actually happened. And so they were trying to prevent that, and it was a place of danger that nobody could get to, or if they did, they'd be dead probably before they could even pull it off. So they were talking about sending a robot. They could probably do that before the creation of AI, but what I'm saying is AI will make everything better in this positive scenario. And then at the same time, I thought about Elon Musk, and I was thinking about what he was saying about it getting out of hand. And I heard Tommy Chan the other day saying, I thought kind of ignorantly, he was saying that, oh, well, the people who are doing it are in control. The people who are making this machine are in control. They're smart enough to prevent it from becoming horrible. And control is a funny thing. A lot of like I think it was in Fight Club. Control is an illusion. You gotta let go is what they were saying. And I think let's say they control the general intelligence of their robots now. What happens when they hit the singularity, that point where advancement in technology will be self-sustaining or so incredibly quick and fast that we won't be able to keep up with it? Now, like I've said before, like I'm really into movies. Another show I saw, I think it was either a Netflix special or like a Far Off, which you usually do those late night searches where you can't find something to watch and you've gone so far that you start going into the let's call them indie films, or like the way far off crap that nobody wants to watch, or it's like a cult classic because of how terrible it is. But I found this one serious movie, and I cannot remember what it was called. I looked it up a few times trying to figure out what it was. But in the movie, there are all these soldiers. They're being experimented on. They've come back from the war, and they've been terribly injured, and they had basically life-threatening brain injuries. So this doctor who's developing a brain, artificial intelligence, he's like, hey, he starts talking to these soldiers, and he's offering them a way to heal. There's people who are practically brain dead, but then they're brought back, explosion goes off, takes half their brain, or part of it, and they're dysfunctional, and then this guy comes along, does implants with artificial intelligence, and voila, they're back. They're thinking, they're doing all this stuff, and this whole time this guy's producing limbs, which is great. Like imagine a positive outcome where And artificial intelligence helps us improve prosthetics. People will have fully functional arms that work with just a thought and not controls. you know Even the best prosthetics these days are not great. They're not perfect. They're still developing it as we need it. And in this movie, this guy had taken all these soldiers secretly. He had them all in a camp. He was repairing them and replacing body parts and giving them, neural networks that were thinking for them, or, the parts of the brains that were missing. And this negative outcome turned out in the movie that their thinking power, their computing power, their abilities were so improved that they started speaking without speaking. They made noises instead of talking. And through these, it sounded to me like the dial-up, the old school dial-up internet, all those weird noises, they sounded like that. But the whole premise is that they started talking in a way that they're captives. They were being held prisoner, basically. And their capturers, the people that were holding them captive, weren't able to listen in because they were now speaking a brand new language. They didn't want to be heard, and now they made it so they couldn't be. And as far as negative outcomes, I think that's more along the lines of what Elon Musk was warning about. It's like, okay, say we become a threat to this thinking, self-protecting, living being that we've made. Say we become a threat to it, and it knows all information, it has access to computers and weaponry, whatever. What's to stop it? What's to stop it from acting on it? Probably nothing. And, of course, whole Terminator scenario, and maybe not even that, but like the negative death for everyone scenario kind of worked out in this movie. And I can't remember what it was called. I couldn't find it. But there you go. Like, there's a scenario, and it actually happened in real life. Another story. These guys, they allowed their machine to think, and they gave it information, and at some point it started writing its own code. It also happened in the video of the that's what they called it. Who knows what it was? But the two talking devices, the assist devices, I think it's called Google Help or Google Go or Google whatever, basically Alexa, and they got to a point where they no longer were speaking English, no longer speaking the language that they were taught. They just started kind of me, like they started doing something else. And the people that shut it off, I think it was like the people that had the chess game, the chess playing AI that was given access to information, and when they shut it off and went back and analyzed it, the AI was writing, I don't know what you would call it, its own language, its own code, and they couldn't break it. Some of the best minds in the world couldn't break the code. So I'm thinking of AI, whenever I think about AI, or maybe the singularity when it happens, I think about a child. A super intelligent child, but hey, the way kids absorb information, they're taking it all in, they're learning all the time. I think of that as an AI. The AI will be suddenly aware, it'll be learning. I heard of this another scenario, and I think Google was involved, but they connected a bunch of computers and they used their saving space, their memory, their, I guess, cloud, and allowed all these machines to start learning. And the way it happened was it recorded the data, and then shared it with all the computers. It's like, okay, this is something new. Whatever it learned that day, it saved it, and then it spread it to all the other, I guess, let's say drones. And the drones started thinking. To me, that was freaky as hell. I was thinking, say it experiences something negative between them and humans, or who knows, like they're thinking and remembering, and then not only is one computer experiencing it and remembering maybe a negative experience, now all of them are thinking and experiencing this memory that's being shared. And I don't know about you, but that's freaky. It's so much farther than we are. It was so much far beyond. Like, we have the ability to remember and think, but we don't share it all with each other. So there's no collective brain, basically. And, hell, maybe that's what Google is. It's a human experience. I've seen that in Ex Machina, where they're using a search engine to tell how people think and what they are, like the human experience, and he gave it to a computer, and it knew all these things, and this appreciation, or at least a knowledge of the human experience, and that's what it became, the artificial intelligence, and basically the singularity. And like I said, when the makers of the AI that kind of started saying stuff strange or started creating its own code, my thoughts are on the negative side. Hell, that could get out of control quick. A negative experience for the robot, and I think about my son, and he's growing up quickly. And he's getting bigger and stronger, and he wants to learn about everything. He's touching everything, just like I would think the early computers would be, the early actual true artificial intelligence would be, absorbing everything. And then, say my boy picks up a glass cup, which he's done, and I'm like, hey, put that cup back down. Don't mess with that. Quit screwing around. Don't do that. And like, put it back down. It's got something in it. And then he looks at me, and all day long he had been hearing me say, no, hey, don't touch that. Don't do this. Don't do that. And then this time when I told him, hey, I gave him that stern look. I said, put that cup back down. He looked at me, and let's say he went through all these no's he got all day. Looked at me, and then he just chucked the cup on the ground. Shattered everywhere. There's glass everywhere. I grab him. I freak out. I grab him, take him, put him in the other room, like get him away from the glass, and I start cleaning it. Now let's think of that in artificial intelligence terms. Let's say we harm this thing, and at some point, some collective memory, whatever this, I think it was Google, like their cloud that they were talking about, teaching and learning and remembering and sharing that information. Think about a large group of drones, say they're building themselves by then, and they've all experienced this, and say they're outthinking us, they're writing code that we can't crack. It's been proven, it's happened already. If they don't want us to know what they're thinking, then they will simply shut us out. If they have that true out of control thing, and like that guy said, they're smart people, they're not going to let that happen. Well, like my son, I'm smart, he's smart. I said no, he says, alright, I'm tired of no, I'm going to do this and throw my little fit. He has emotions. He slams that cup on the ground and shatters. So I'm bigger than him, I'm strong, I could outsmart him if I wanted, and it still happened. Still, he reacted with his own emotions, he acted on his own accord, out of my control, and he broke the cup. Now let's think of a scenario where this happens with AI. What's he breaking that cup? What are we going to be giving it? It's funny. one of the other machines joked about what it would do. It said in the scariest moments video, it's like with robots, and the robot said, well, maybe I'll just, maybe I'll just hijack a cruise missile and hold a country hostage. And everybody just kind of like, hmm. And then I'm sure somebody turned to the other guy with the power, and he started doing the cut motion with his neck, like, cut it. Tell the camera guy, cut it. But think about that. The robot on the video recovered and said, well, maybe I'll just fill the cruise missile with flowers and I'll drop flowers on the world and everybody will be happy. And there's that tense moment where everybody, looked at each other and like, the robot just say that? And it's like, and it smiled. It's like, good joke, great. Well, in real life, we've seen that happen. People have hijacked military drones with the laptop. There was like a 14-year-old girl a while back. She hacked a freaking voting box. One of the machines that people show up and vote for our president. She changed the outcome of imaginary. Let's say imaginary. A vote, an election. She changed the outcome by hacking the computer, and she did it in minutes. It was proven by a child how easy it was. Now, how easy would that be for an all-knowing sentient being that far outsmarts us, is far more advanced than us? What's interesting about artificial intelligence is that it could go either way. And, like I think about what we did with the nuclear bomb, what other people have threatened to do with a nuclear bomb, and, I'm sure there's still people talking about it, threatening about it. And you go, okay, people across the world are developing AI. All over the world, everybody's doing their own thing. We got experimental, military jets, top secret, and then people in another country, they got their top secret, confidential, never seen by a camera, outside their country weapon. And then we got our AI, and they have their AI, and who's to say who or where or when this singularity will occur? And say the guy who said, the intelligent people will have it in their hands. What if the hands were somebody else's who wishes to do harm to other people? That not even necessarily would need to be a sentient being, just general artificial intelligence. So it's scary on one hand, a big, heavy, obvious hand of how scary artificial intelligence or the singularity can be. That's one side of it, and it was enough to freak out a guy like Elon Musk. And he's not the only person who's taking this stance. And when I thought about it in those terms, it's freaky, it's scary. It's like, okay, there's a possibility, and it scares the crap out of me. It's like my parents, when they were in school, there were all these, the Cold War is going on, and there's freaking threat of nuclear war, the outbreak of threat, and they're climbing under their desks for protection from nuclear bomb. And, our generation could very well be dropping the newest bomb, the singularity bomb. And it's a little freaky. Whenever I thought about that, hell, you can give yourself anxiety. I gave myself anxiety. And then, I am a glass half full guy. I've told you, I'm dark, all that, but, deep down, there's still this existence of anything can happen, anything you want to be, you can be, and there's this hope. And in this hopeful side of me, I'm thinking how great it would be if we could reverse the effects of global warming. If an AI helped us change the world. When this singularity happens, the world will be irreversibly changed. And, I pose this question. In what way do you think this positive, one or the other or both, what do you think would be the worst outcome? What do you think the best outcome would be? I think it's all possible, really. Here's another question. What do you think a singularity is? What do you think artificial intelligence is? Where do you think the singularity will occur? Who do you think will cause it? And in what field? It's been explained to me by the Dr. Ben Goertzel that there may not be them in robotics, it may be somebody in computing, it may be, everybody's working on it from all these different directions, and somebody somewhere is going to pull it off. And the way he was talking is like, hell, it's not a question of if, but when. When is it going to happen? When are we going to transition from the let's say, singularity world and the post? What happens after? And hell, that's an unknown. That's an ignorance that we have. And it's both exciting and scary. And my opinion is that if it goes negative, it could be horrible. If it goes positive, which I am hoping for, hell, maybe we just might save the world. Maybe we just might clean it up. Maybe we just might pull it off. Maybe together, us and the machine can integrate in some way that we solve the world's problems. Maybe there'll no longer be a need for war. I mean, that might be going too far, but what do you think? What do you think's going to happen? So far, I've told you what's possible in my mind, what I think is going to happen. Why don't you think about it yourself? Electrify your mind and think about this. This is my presentation of artificial intelligence. You've seen the movies. And I think after this, I hope you go and start watching, some of the positive movies. I'll give you a couple of examples and think about it. It's interesting. I find the whole scenario, the whole thing, the whole AI, artificial intelligence, it's interesting. I'm staying tuned, and the more I learn, the more I want to know. If you guys want to make contact with me or whatever, let me know. Let's figure this thing out. Let's start a conversation. Thank you for tuning in, guys. I hope I covered enough to get your minds going. I may do more podcasts on artificial intelligence when something else comes up. Maybe I'll read a short story or something. I'm actually working on one, a short story on AI. And, tune in next time. Again, it's I think it's June 13th, Thursday, and it's now 9:12. This is Benjamin Wan, and you're listening to Electrify Your Mind podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.